Welcome back to another episode of 40 Facts About the 40K Universe. I am your host, Gershwan, and you are watching One Mind Syndicate. Today we continue talking about the Imperial Guard as we get into a new regiment, the Attilan Rough Riders. If you guys don't know, a Rough Rider is basically a horseback Imperial Guardsman. You're going to learn more about them in this video, and if you're new to the channel, subscribe because we post Warhammer 40K lore video every single day, and make your requests down in the comment section below as far as what video you would like to see next. But with that said, let's get into 40 facts about the Attilan Rough Riders. The Attilan Rough Riders, also referred to as the Rough Riders of Attilan, are the elite Imperial Guard mounted regiment whose members have been recruited from the feudal world of Attilan, an ancient human colony located in the Ultima Segmentum. On feudal worlds such as Attilan, where it is normal for warriors to fight from horseback, the Imperium recruits mounted regiments of Imperial Guardsmen known as Rough Riders. The Attilan Rough Riders are recruited from such worlds where fierce nomadic tribes and warrior horse lodges have perfected the art of cavalry techniques through the thousands of Terran years of bloodshed. It is said that the Attilans are born in the saddle, for they are amongst the greatest horsemen in the galaxy. The Attilan breed of horses they prefer are thick-set beasts, ill-tempered and likely to bite or kick anybody unwise enough to give them a chance to do so. Such mounts are bred for power and strength, and many are given biochemical treatments intended to enhance their combat potential. Trained for a life of battle, these warhorses do not shy away from the enemy or panic easily. The riders depend upon their mount a great deal, and value them more highly than any treasure. In adverse conditions, a warrior will draw off some of the animal's blood and drink it to sustain himself, enabling the Attilans to survive without food or water for many days. This gives them the ability to operate behind enemy lines without supplies. The Rough Riders of Attilan's uniforms consist of personal armor made of scale, leather, or hide greatcoats, leather riding gloves, boots, and the traditional and distinctive Attilan wide-brimmed fur riding hat. Every squad of Attilan Rough Riders chooses a distinctive Imperial Guard skull motif, which is branded onto each of their horses. Apart from this, and the Imperial Guard icon on their shoulder, they wear little or no insignia. The Attilans present a barbaric appearance, especially with the ritual scarification upon their cheeks. Long knife cuts of white tissue which stand out against each man's weathered beaten skin. These marks are cut into the rider's cheeks as young men, and the ashes from the campfire are rubbed into the wound so that they leave deep and prominent scars. The Attilans also are known to make extensive use of tribal tattoos as well. Attilans tend to wear their hair in long, unkept braids or long and matted. They do not wash themselves or clean their clothes, believing that to do so would affront the spirits of water that they superstitiously believe people their land. This tradition has proven hard to break, despite considerable efforts on the part of the Adeptus Ministorum in the barely tolerated missions in the Attilan capital city of Canasan. Indeed, it is said that the stench of the Attilan is as powerful a weapon as their hunting lances. Attilan society was once composed of fractured, scattered nomadic tribes who spent their lives herding their animals and warring with one another for food, land, horses, and dominance. For centuries, they existed like this, perfecting both their way of war and the breeding of their unique horses, until the Imperium rediscovered them and began bringing them back into the Emperor's fold. Attilan is a rugged and striking world, slightly smaller than Terra, dominated by broad, arid steppes. Its single continent spans nearly half of the planet, with the rest being deep, impenetrable seas. At the center of Attilan's single continent is a vast desert, brutally extreme in its temperature variation and weather patterns. It is a baking desert during the summer season, and a howling icy expanse of sand, snow, and wind in the winter. The steppes and savanna for which the planet is known ring this central desert, and are home to nearly all of the planet's population. This scant, habitable area is defined by a stunning array of rolling plains, soaring mountain ranges, deep inland seas, and powerful rushing rivers. At the very extreme of the continent, All along its long coastline are dense forests of tall evergreens. There is only one city on Attilan, a bustling metropolis of Canasan. It is here that the Attilans have their government, their main trading centers, and the small, barely tolerable imperial and ecclesiarchy missions. The Attilans themselves are a hardy, passionate, small-framed people with nut-colored skin, black hair and eyes, and striking, weather-beaten features. Some Attilans sport long braids or tangles of hair, and many Attilan men sport impressive mustaches that fall across their faces. Attilans of both genders tend to be bandy-legged and long-armed, with broad shoulders and piercing eyes. They move with a loping, bow-legged gait of lifetime riders, and are graceful and elegant in the saddle. Some undergo ritual scarification as a part of their coming-of-age ceremony. Long, deep vertical cuts are made into their cheeks, into which ashes are rubbed to encourage scars that mar the Attilans' faces. As with most feudal worlds, few Attilans take the time to learn to read and write, consumed as they are with warfare. Written language is largely the domain of scribes, and even many of the elite see little reason to concern themselves with this specialized task. While the Attilans possess the understanding of technology required to wield their weapons and sufficient knowledge of august tech rites to maintain their own equipment, life on Attilan does not prepare them for many of the arcane machines and devices that they encounter in the service of the God Emperor. The Rough Riders of Attilan's warrior prowess is founded upon their tradition of never-ending battle, especially amongst themselves, for the tribes of Attilan respect only power, and a tribal chieftain or king must be prepared to demonstrate this might to the doubting rivals. When a lord of Attilans defeats an enemy, he decapitates the beaten man's head, and has his artificers turn the skull into a drinking cup as permanent symbol of a victory. Attilans have little respect for medals awarded after a battle's conclusion, and feel that only symbols of merit worth owning are those won in the heat of battle, while their warriors' blood is still hot in their veins. As such, the most valued trophy of war amongst the Attilans are the scars earned from cheating death and the skull of a worthy foe. Attilan life is innately tied to various animals. Two species of particular importance are the avibor, a herd animal that provides critical sustenance, and of course, the mighty horses of Terran descent that the Attilans ride into battle. Horses serve as faithful companions and mounts, and avigors make up the core of the Attilan staple diet on their homeworld. The Attilan's native variant of the Imperial Creed uses iconography of the horse and rider to represent many aspects of the holy. Work, play, and the passage of seasons all center on herding these animals, as the Attilans move them to the center of the continent during the summer for good grazing and to the temperate lands near the forest for the winter. Their deep bond with the horses as both working and fighting animals is one reason that so many Rough Rider regiments are raised on this planet. The Attilans have lived alongside their mounts for millennia. Their entire cultural identity is centered around these tough, compact, and reliable horses, and the creatures are used not only as mounts and working animals, but for food material and in the Attilan's various religious sites. The Attilans excel at raiding and skirmishing, and are used by the Imperial Guard as guerrilla fighters to great effect all across the galaxy. Their cavalry charges are in part terrifying and in part inspiring for their allies to behold, a striking testament to the will of the Attilans and the unyielding might of the Imperial Guard. To their enemies, these roaring walls of horses, soldiers, and volatile spear tips must seem nothing less than the hammer of the God Emperor himself, smiting those who have woken his ire by provoking the Attilans. The world of Attilan is primitive, having reverted to a pre-industrial way of life during the long night of the Age of Strife. On such a barbaric world, the horse is the most important type of transport, and horses are found throughout human space, having been brought early by colonists during the Dark Age of technology. Even the Imperial Guard, with its legions of machinery and armored vehicles, has a place for mounted warriors. Regiments of Rough Riders are sometimes deployed wholesale, especially where terrain is unsuitable for tracked vehicles. A squad of skilled mounted cavalry can be used as an effective assault and skirmishing force, able to move rapidly over the broken ground, climb steep slopes, and gallop along narrow ravines. However, it is most common to divide mounted regiments and allocate Rough Rider squads to fight alongside conventional infantry regiments, thereby spreading the horsemen over a wide battlefield. They can then act in the roles of scouts, patrols, and fast response troops. Rough Riders are also used to operate out on their own beyond the reach of normal lines of communication, deep within enemy territory. But of their use of living mounts rather than machines, they need neither fuel nor maintenance, and unlike vehicles, they cannot be easily traced with auspex or scanners. This enables them to harass enemy troops by using guerrilla tactics. For the most part, the Attilan Rough Riders are raiders and skirmishers. They use guerrilla tactics honed over thousands of standard years of tribal warfare. They specialize in using terrain features and light cover to hide their movements, appearing suddenly over a rise or behind a ridge, or riding quickly down on their enemies, lances leveled and screaming all the while. This shocking spectacle rarely fails to shake the enemies and scatter their formations. Once the initial charge is over, the Attilans wheel their mounts around and charge back into the thick of the enemy, using their sidearms and sabers with shocking efficiency to cut the enemies to ribbons. In the middle of the melee, the horses themselves also prove devastating weapons, biting, kicking, and trampling everything around them. The Attilans are well trained in the fast attack anti-armor tactics, where their speed, agility, and pinpoint accuracy with a hunting lance can disable all but the most powerful armored vehicles. Attilan Rough Rider regiments operating in the Spinward Front of the Calic sector have been used to shockingly good effect by Lord Marshal Ganzeric. Recognizing their aptitude for guerrilla fighting and both anti-infantry and anti-armored warfare, the Lord Marshal has deployed the Attilan under the command of the implacable commander Tenzing, a protege of the famous Attilan war chief Mogul Khmer. Under the leadership of Tenzing, the Attilans have spent most of their time in theater, battling orcs and the human separatists of the Severan Dominant, using their knowledge of skirmish warfare to cut a swath through the orc and human forces alike, sowing such discord throughout their enemies' armies. Of particular note in the Spinward Front is the 264th Attilan Rough Riders, a regiment that has won some note in the Spinward Front, battling the various renegades and marauders who have struck at the flanks of Imperial supply lines, and worlds left vulnerable by the major push against the Severan Dominant. Although they have participated in a few of the major operations against the Separatists in the Spinward Front, the population of several Imperial worlds owe their continued existence to the swift reaction of the 264th. Commander Cthulhu, one of Tenzing's most prominent pupils, has led the 264th on the worlds of Sisk, Sinofia, and Oriad, using the mobility of her force to harry and intercept groups of raiders as they land and before they can strike at vulnerable targets. Currently, the 264th is on the world of Sapirsk, where it has been assigned with purging a larger group of renegades who have entranced themselves in the Garv Hive and world's main hive cities. Unfortunately, in recent months, the campaign has ground to a halt thanks to a number of aircraft possessed by renegades of the Dominant. Without a dedicated corps of anti-aircraft weapons, the Attilans and the Krieg Guardsmen stationed on Kapirsk have been forced to fight a defensive battle, holding on until the proper support arrives. Commander Cthulhu and her Attilans have been particularly aggravated by this turn of events. The Attilan Rough Riders favor the offensive, using swift Rough Riders to throw the enemies into confusion before decisively crushing them with a bulk of their force. As such, Cthulhu has made targeting the airfields a priority, and has hopes to rout the renegades defending these key locations with a set of rapid, aggressive strikes by her vanguard units, while the aircraft engages the rest of the Imperial Guards on Gar Hive. And those were 40 facts about the Attilan Rough Riders. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. There's more Rough Rider videos to come, so please subscribe to the channel. Like this lore was saying, there is the Death Corps of Krieg Rough Riders. Those guys are beasts because their horses are augmented horses, basically. And of course, there's more Rough Riders. We're going to touch on them later on. If you guys have any suggestions or requests for Rough Rider regiments, or just Imperial Guard regiments in general, please comment down below. We take your suggestions and your requests and we create videos, so help us out, make your suggestion. And again, it's always really interesting to learn about something like the Attilan Rough Riders, because they're not a model that you see on the actual battlefield. The model for the Attilan Rough Riders, they're old, they don't look good at all compared to the new models, and that's because GW came out with that model back in the day when they were trying to probably compete with the World War II, the Civil War, the Western battle board games and tabletop games. So now you just have the lore and you don't have the awesome model anymore. The only real awesome horseback model that I know of is the Death Corps of Krieg model, and that's for Forge World. It looks really awesome, but I think it's really expensive too. But everything from Forge World is expensive. But again, it's always interesting to learn about the topic of Rough Riders. Hopefully, maybe down the line, we'll someday see a really cool Rough Rider regiment. But in reality, GW has to touch on a lot more different regiments. Because for a while, or up until now, GW has kind of neglected all the other Imperial Guard regiments. You have very limited choices for models that you can choose from. But again, guys, thank you so much for liking, commenting, and sharing. If you guys want to support us, please share this video with your friends on Facebook, Twitter, or whatever social media you use, by you guys hitting the little notification button. That's the little bell button right next to subscribe. It helps out the channel and it helps us create more videos for you guys. And again, thanks for listening and hope you enjoyed. This was Gersh1 with One Mind Syndicate signing out.